everyone. You are listening to The Wellness Project. I'm your host, Des. We are powered by Spotlight Coalition, and this is episode 102. On today's episode, I interview Jimmy Clare. Jimmy was diagnosed with autism when he was in 3rd grade, but he didn't find out that he was autistic until 11th grade. Jimmy speaks with me about the obstacles that he had to overcome due to his diagnosis, but not only his diagnosis, but a lot of the obstacles he had to overcome, a lot of the challenges, came from the people in his life, specifically at school. Teachers, administration, and his peers. Jimmy dealt with a lot of bullying, not just from his peers, but the adults at his school as well. He and his family were told that he was going to have a lot of limitations and a lot of things that he wouldn't be able to do. Today, Jimmy has exceeded everyone's expectations and is thriving. Jimmy's story is great because he was so determined to not let other people's expectations define him. I want you to help me welcome Jimmy, but before we get to my interview with Jimmy, I do want to just warn you, my audio has been very off lately, so the sound quality of this interview is not amazing. I'm so sorry about that. I am trying to fix my audio. I don't know what's wrong. I don't know what's going on. I hope that you're still able to enjoy the interview and get a lot out of it. Though the sound quality is not amazing and not up to par, the interview is still incredible. So I hope that you still listen and stick it through. Thank you so much, and help me welcome Jimmy. All right, everyone. I am here with Jimmy Clare. Jimmy, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm really looking forward to speaking with you today. So to get us started, can you share your story all about your diagnosis and what your journey has looked like with that?
Yeah. So growing up, I was diagnosed. I like to say I was diagnosed in 3rd grade, but my mom says otherwise in 4th grade. But I don't know why she thinks she can always argue with me, because I have a better memory than she does. I had a close group of friends. So I kept mostly to my close group of friends. I wasn't the outgoing person I am kind of today. I was very shy. I would also say I was kind of very awkward. I stood by myself, and instead of just talking to people or kids my own age, I kind of felt like an outcast. And I didn't even know I was autistic until I was in 11th grade. I don't know if you've ever seen the show The Sopranos, where Tony Soprano is talking to his therapist in this brown, wooded kind of looking room. That was what I had to go to. And I was kind of nervous at first because I got asked so many weird questions. I didn't remember the questions at all. But at the end of it, my mom told me I got a long list of things that I won't be able to do because I'm autistic. And I was like, well, that's wonderful. And I was like, this person barely even knows me. I think she saw me maybe 10 times. And she's like, here's the data. Whoopie-doo. Basically, that's what I've been getting from since the day I was born, was just a bunch of people who says I won't be able to do many things because I'm autistic. They told me I had a big head. And they told me that I wouldn't be able to read higher than a 2nd grade level. I'm in college. I would love to meet those people who said that about me, because I was like, hey, stick your data, because, data has been proven to be wrong.
Right. So you feel like a lot of people were wrong about you then and your diagnosis.
Well, I would say that they were wrong. Like, more of I just feel like people shouldn't judge you by the data. Like, maybe they could have said, hey, here's what the data shows, but it's not always accurate. We're just going off by what it says, and you may have some different experiences, and you might be able to learn all these skills. And I feel like the system is wrong. I mean, could be better improved. So from whatever the time that you're diagnosed, they should follow up with you like X amount of years later and do the same diagnosis and see if you learned all those skills or not.
Right, absolutely. And I definitely want to get more into that. But for those of our listeners that don't know, can you explain what autism is?
Well, I like to say autism is a unique perspective. We're very detail oriented to an extent. So I'll give you an example of detail oriented. I can memorize lines and stuff from TV shows. I can quote so many different TV shows at once.
All right, thank you for explaining that. So, are there any sort of typical traits that people with autism do exhibit?
I would say one of the typical traits is that we don't like to look people in the eyes, and we don't like to be told to look me in the eyes, because in my opinion, when I look somebody in the eyes, I feel like, am I staring? Am I not staring? And how long am I supposed to look this person in the eye? And I kind of decided, I actually created a little bit of a game. So I start with looking somebody in the eyes, and I look at the wall behind that person, and I look sort of like to the right of the person, to the left of the person, back at the person's eyes, or the ground behind that person, just so that I'm not always looking someone in the eyes. And then another trait would be we like having schedules. And when we're thrown off our schedules, we might as well say day over, see you bye because it is a big total cluster at the end, and we don't like surprises. Like for me, I like a nice surprise, but I don't want to have a surprise party ever because it would scare the heck out of me.
Well, thank you for sharing those traits. So, you had said that you were diagnosed with autism in third grade, but you didn't realize that you were autistic until 11th grade. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So my parents didn't refer to me as, oh, Jimmy is autistic. They didn't refer to me as I was autistic. They may have in the background to my extended family to say, like to my cousins, like, oh, yeah, your cousin may not be able to pick up on X social cue or whatever. But they never said it in front of me. My cousins never treated me differently. They just treated me like any other cousins do. Even my friends and my brother, he treated me just like any other brother would do. We wrestled, we got on each other's nerves 24/7. We played video games together. Yeah, so no one treated me like I was autistic. The way I found out was my school district at a certain age in the school district, you got to go to your own IEP meeting, which stands for Individual Educational Plan. I mean, I absolutely hated every second. Well, okay, I can say every second, but pretty much a lot of my public school growing up, because I just felt like an outcast. My school made me feel like an outcast. They all kind of ganged up on me, so to speak. But the reason why the IEP was a waste of time was because on the way to the meeting, I was told I was not able to speak at my own meeting. And it was like, the meeting is about me, right? She's like, yeah. I should have known who was going to be there. It was this person. I don't even know her job title, but she fought me and my mom on every single thing. It was like pulling teeth with her. And she was just annoying.
So were your parents purposely keeping your diagnosis from you?
I would say they hid it, and I wrote this in a blog post on my website before. I said I'm glad that I found out myself because I don't know what I would have done if people that was close to me, who loved me, who joked around with me and everything, told me if I was autistic. I don't know what I would have done. I don't think I would be the person who I am today if somebody told me, "Oh, well, you're autistic. You're going to be a total failure. You're going to not live up to be anything because you're autistic and you learn differently than others." I think everybody learns differently from others, but somehow because I'm diagnosed, I'm a creepy alien from outer space. Apparently, I'm not sure.
Did you associate autism with being a failure and being an outcast?
I kind of felt like I did a little bit. I felt sometimes that way with my school district because there were just a lot of people who kind of just, this might not just like sound like a great expression, but that kind of like rode me into the ground, so to speak. Like, oh, they just challenged me in every little thing. When I came to them telling them I was getting bullied, I literally had to go do that over and over again from elementary school all the way up to high school.
What would have made your school experience better?
I feel like they could have warned me about a few things. For instance, in elementary school, my parents had me in social groups to learn how to socially interact with my peers. Another ironic part about that is when I was in class, I was able to talk with other students and I felt like I was getting to know them. But then at a random time each and every single day, not the consistent time, but just random times a day, sometimes even weeks later, I got pulled out of class to interact with a group of peers. I mean, who were also not very social, interactive kind of people like me. And I was like, I thought I was doing okay myself, but even though it was helpful in the long run, I just kind of wish that they told me ahead of time, like, hey, this is happening at this certain time of day. But no, they just pulled me out whenever and wherever, whatever I was doing. And it was very frustrating because this happened to me later on in middle school and high school. And I remember in high school, they pulled me out to do it during one of my favorite electives. And like I like art class. It was a great way for me to express myself in an appropriate manner. I loved all my art classes, and I got so annoyed because eventually my mom written to my IEP case manager and said, "This has got to stop because Jimmy loves art class." So they finally decided to pull me out once every so often. They finally now later on notified me after I complained many times about it to notify me about when it's going to happen and say, hey, this is happening here at this time. We're taking you out of, I forget what they took me out. Sometimes they took me out of gym class because I can participate with the other kids on a specific sport or game, like football, because of my neck issues. So even with the fire drills, I kind of wish that I finally got people to tell me when the fire drills would happen because I have hearing aids and it scared the hell out of me.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing those. Those are really good points. And as students, especially students with autism, really like that consistency and structure. And like you said, to know the plan ahead of time. So those are really good points. Thank you for sharing those. So you mentioned that a lot of the doctors said that you were going to have a lot of different obstacles in your life because of your autism. Did you ever feel like your diagnosis held you back in any ways or that you had specific things to overcome?
Oh, you name it. I had to overcome bullying. I had to overcome reading at a certain level. Like, for instance, I remember practicing reading every single day. I mean, I hated reading to a point where I stopped for a while. But then when I got into middle school, and where basically my seventh grade teacher, she challenged me to read higher level books than what the school district was giving out for special education. But anytime when I was challenged by a word, I asked my teacher, I asked my mom, I asked my dad, I looked it up in Google. I just remember seeing those words over and over again in some of the books later on. It's like, oh, I remember that word. Oh, I remember this. And sooner or later, I just got comfortable just reading all these high level books. I'm really impressed with how far I've come. And I've also had to overcome 9 ear surgeries because I was deaf in my right ear. And I like to consider myself, I was very smart when I was younger too, because when I couldn't speak at a certain age, I pointed at every object that I was looking for, and my parents knew exactly what I needed. And when I was pointing, I was like, wow, I was a smart baby back then.
Oh, yeah, that's amazing. Wow. So it sounds like you've overcome a lot in your life and not just things having to do with your diagnosis, but other people's perceptions of you because of your diagnosis, that they put you in this box limiting you, but you overcame all of those things. What kept you so determined to push forward and prove people wrong about yourself?
I know this might sound wrong of me for saying so, but it's fun to prove people wrong. And and I'm going to quote one of my other favorite TV shows called The Blacklist on NBC. The main character, Raymond Reddington, he always says, "It's like, man, I never get tired of being right."
Jimmy, you describe yourself as an autism advocate. What are your goals for being an advocate for the autistic community?
I would like to make colleges more acceptable for people with extra challenges. So, for instance, some colleges, the accommodations, let's just say, I wouldn't say it's hard to get, but it's tedious. You have to go through a process, and I get why there's a process. So it's not like, oh, I'm just bashing a process for no reason. I understand there's a reason to it, but the reason why the process is annoying is because you first have to apply for it, then you have to go meet for somebody, then you have to determine what's appropriate, what can be done, and they want proof that you had an IEP in high school. And if you don't have one, if you don't have your most recent one, you have to go track that down. And once you track that down, you have to go meet with that person again. Again, I'm just going to buy off what I know. What's also very frustrating is that every semester one has to renew their commendations every semester. And plus, another thing I would like for the community or for colleges is the Disability Center is not a very appropriate name, especially in this day and age. Because one, it's saying, oh, this is for people with disabilities. You know, many people could have many different types of disabilities. They're not physically disabled. And if even someone was physically disabled, what would be a better name for it would be the accommodation center, because that would benefit literally everyone. It'd be included with everyone. It's more welcoming. The disability center is like, it's not welcoming at all. It's just like, yeah, you're disabled. Not everybody who has extra challenges is disabled either. So it's not very appropriate anymore, especially in this day and age. The other thing that I would like for colleges to do is the note taker accommodation is absolutely, in my opinion, useless. And here's why. If somebody doesn't agree to take the notes or volunteer to take the notes for that particular person who have extra challenges, well, that person with the extra challenges, guess what? They don't get a note taker. I feel like that needs to be revamped somehow. And luckily, I think outside the box. So, one of the things I thought maybe that they could do is we have this technology in the rooms. They use smart boards, at least in my college. What if they have a software programmed into the smart board, so whatever the teacher is writing will eventually become typed text, and then whatever that text happens to be will be input into a PowerPoint, and that PowerPoint will be given to the student. So that way, it's basically like saying the teacher is writing the notes for the student with extra challenges, and that person who needs the that accommodation gets the accommodation. Not anybody who wants to earn a little bit extra money. I don't even know how much money that the college gives to the note takers, but I don't think I've had one successful class for a note taker to have me a note taker. So now I actually finally got all my accommodations to record lectures. So I know what the teacher said and in what context. So even if I wrote something down, I was like, oh, okay, I remember why I wrote something on this for that or whatever it is. But
Oh, yeah, those are some great ideas. Thank you for sharing those. Really, really great ideas. And I hope you share those with your college. Do you think that people with autism, people on the spectrum, do you think that they're represented in media?
one of the shows that I actually really liked was Atypical on Netflix. Though I was really disappointed on how they wrapped it up, and I'm not going to do any spoiler alerts because that's not me. What I liked about Atypical, even though that one of the main characters who played an autistic person, I actually looked up the actor and I looked up in an interview, he actually said that I did a lot of research about being autistic on and on how to represent them, so I'm not offending anyone. He really played a really great part, and I actually thought he was autistic, but when I googled, it was like, no, he's not even autistic, and it's like, huh, that's interesting. Like he really did a really phenomenal job, and to be honest, I don't think I've ever used that word in a sentence.
Wow, okay, well, that's really great to know. Well, Jimmy, this has been so amazing. Thank you for coming on and sharing your story with us. Can you tell our listeners where they can find you?
They could literally can find me anywhere. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. But basically, the best place to find me is on crazyfitnessguy.com because all my social media profiles are there, and all of Crazy Fitness Guy is there.
Everyone, all those links will be in the show notes, so make sure you go check out Jimmy. Jimmy, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I really hope you enjoyed today's episode. Jimmy, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your story. If you wouldn't mind, I would so appreciate you heading over to iTunes or Spotify and leaving me a written review on iTunes or leaving me some stars on Spotify. And if you want more mental health and wellness content, make sure you head over to my Facebook group. I'm in there almost every single day, and that is facebook.com/groups/according to Des, and that link will be in the show notes. I will see you in there. Thanks so much for tuning in today, and I will see you next week with another incredible guest.